you belong there. Remind yourself that you belong there as much as anyone else. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's me, Yeonni, and for this week's video, I will be sharing my top 10 tips on attending your first academic conference in a successful way. Basically, I went to my very first academic conference presenting a poster back in early August. So I guess about like a month ago exactly. Did some things I'm really proud of. Other things I'm like, okay, I should remember that for next time. So you know what I do here? I thought I would share those tips with you in case you're someone in a graduate program or even an undergrad, or I don't know, it's like a whole world here in academia, and my whole thing here on my channel is to try to like demystify the whole thing. With that said, if any of the words that came out of my mouth sounds interesting to you, let's get straight into this video. So my first tip is regarding what to wear at an academic conference. I would say business casual was what I packed, and I'm really glad I did. So what that means is clothes that look professional but also are comfortable. For women, there's a lot of options out there where you can wear like trousers, blouses, dresses if you feel comfortable. Personally for me, I feel more badass and way more comfortable in a pair of like balloon-like trousers, so that is what I packed with a bunch of billowy, professional-looking blouses. Also, shoes. When it comes to outfit, you know, you're gonna be on your feet when you're presenting a poster, and I didn't think there would be so much walking around, but I don't know if it's just every academic conference, because there's a lot of academic conferences like across academia world, but there was a lot of moments of confusion where like, oh, okay, there's a happy hour or a meeting at this conference center in this hotel in this vicinity, but actually there was a last minute change and it's actually over here now on the other side of the block. So I did a lot of walking, so I personally made the mistake of bringing a pair of Mary Janes that were very cute. I loved them, but were not the most comfortable. But just in case this happened, I did bring a pair of white sneakers that went really, really well with like my more business casual outfit. But also I would really just say, like, ask people who have been to these conferences before you, because I also saw people in like sundresses, I saw people in flip-flops, I saw people in like straight up tuxedos. It just kind of seemed like everyone dressed however they felt comfortable, and no one was there really judging anybody. Everyone's just kind of doing their own thing. So there's a lot of flexibility, I think. Obviously there's like, I think, ideas of what not to wear in like professional settings. A quick Google search can definitely help with that. Really think about your outfit in advance, but business casual I think is the safest bet. Number 2 is about preparing your poster. If you are preparing your poster, like those giant things that you like plaster on the wall and then you like stand around, people ask you questions and whatnot, I would personally say print those out in advance and get one of those poster tubes and just take it with you. So I didn't. I printed mine on site, and thankfully in DC, in the convention area, there was a FedEx right in one of the hotels. So that was very convenient. I did like, they printed it out like within the hour that I ordered it, which was nice. But I just remember feeling a bit anxious because that's kind of why I'm there, right? Like the networking and seeing other people's posters, that's really good too. But because I was there to present this specific poster, I felt a little anxious not having that like physically with me up until like the day before.
I ended up going to DC a bit later. I had planned on going there a day early, printing it out, but you know, life happened, so I ended up going there like the morning that the conference started, so that was just a lot.
If you're going to the conference for a reason, make sure that is prepared. Like if you are doing like a talk or a lecture, make sure your slide deck is on the cloud, make sure it's on a little USB drive, make sure you email it to your fellow lab mates, email it to your professor, have multiple copies. Just good to have a grasp on that thing that you're there for, you know? So that's tip number 2. Tip number 3 is also about like your presentation or your lecture. I would say prepare a little blurb. So while I was putting together this poster, right, I wasn't sure how much of this do I have to know, right? Especially because our poster session, at least at the APA conference, was a 50-minute slot. And there's like 50 other posters there at the same time. So you're in this giant hall, there's people with posters everywhere from all around the country. I wasn't sure if I needed to memorize like word for word what's on my poster, or do I just like stand there and see if anyone makes eye contact and talks to me. So from what I experienced, it seemed like a mixture of all of those. I would walk up to some posters and there would be no one there. You don't even know who's presenting. Someone just put up their poster, left, maybe they're at happy hour, maybe they happened to run to the bathroom right when I walked up. I don't know. And then there were people that stood there and were like, this is my poster, we're from this university. If you have any questions, please let me know. That was some of the approaches that I saw. And then I was very impressed by this one student who, as soon as we came up, he was very, very personable. And then he had like a 2 to 3 minute little blurb on what the poster was about. So he wasn't reading it word for word, but he was like, so, you know, our project is about this. We were curious about this. This is like the data collection process that we did, and this is what we found. And these are the implications, like what are the next steps? So it was very simple, very straightforward, and he really sounded so intelligent, like he knew what he was talking about. So that really inspired me to really open up my poster and just type out like a 2-3 minute blurb and practice it a few times. I didn't obsess over it because I didn't want to be nervous about getting the blurb wrong, but I just wanted to make sure like I knew what I was talking about. So I wrote that down, and the next morning, like an hour before my poster, I just opened it up, grabbed a cup of coffee, and it was just like, you know, reading through it, practicing like the independent variable is this, the dependent variable is this, da da da, blah 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 blah, you know, practiced a little blurb. And yeah, I think that was really helpful, and ultimately the 50 minutes of standing there flew by. Also, depending on your poster, depending on your presentation, depending on the conference, clearly there's a lot of variables at play here. You might be standing at your poster alone, or you might be standing there with your entire lab. So basically, depending on your level of anxiety and preparation that you prefer, I guess this is another preparation point, I felt good about having the 2 to 3 minute blurb, like a quick elevator pitch. That way you don't have to subject yourself to memorizing the whole poster. Also, if someone comes around, you're not just standing there like twiddling your thumbs. Another tip about attending your first academic conference or attending academic conferences in general, this was a tip that someone gave me because it was my first one. I attended a COVID one when I was working as a researcher because I was a co-author on a poster then, but it was just like a Zoom presentation, so that didn't really feel like a real deal. But this was my first one in person. So the advice that I got was there is no way you can attend every lecture, every talk, you can go and see every poster. It was helpful to kind of narrow down like my priorities. I really want to see this poster. I really want to hear this professor speak. I really want to say hello to this psychologist at this booth. And having your priorities of what you really want to get to see that day, like set in stone, I think was really helpful, because there were moments when I was feeling really overwhelmed. There's just a lot going on. There's multiple poster presentations, multiple happy hours, multiple lectures and talks happening at the same time in this giant convention hall, and sometimes in like multiple convention halls. So it's good to know like, okay, where am I supposed to go next, right? Like what do I want to see? Because you're there for a reason, right? So yeah, basically you don't have to go to everything. I think that was helpful. And that goes to the next tip, which is maybe ask your lab advisor or your mentor who you're working with, or a professor that you admire. Ask them like, so like, especially if they're obviously going to the conference, hey, where are you going? Are there any recommendations? Because usually your professors or these people who have been in the industry or academia or the field longer, they know people, right? They're like, oh, this psychologist or this person, they're receiving this like lifetime achievement award, and they are like a pioneer in the field. If you get a chance to go look at it, it could be really interesting. You know, oh, our lab is gonna start doing this kind of research in the fall. You know, I'm gonna go check it out to see what they've done so far. You should go. So I think asking your advisor as well, like, do you have any recommendations on what I should see at the conference? I did that with mine, and that was quite helpful. I hope this is 10 points. I have it written down here. I think it's 10, but the next one, it's on the screen, so y'all know. At least with the APA conference, there were quite a lot of social hours. There was like a Division 17 happy hour where they were going to serve food and drinks for free. So I didn't know this going into this, but I noticed that certain colleagues, they were going into really prioritizing the happy hours because unfortunately, in my experience, we didn't get much of the conference experience funded. So what that means is, so our department had a certain cap on how much we would be reimbursed, even if we were presenting at the conference. So although our poster had gotten accepted and we were going to another state and city to present, the department only had a certain amount that they could cover us for. So basically, they pretty much just covered, I think, like one night at the hotel for me, and I had to be there for 3 days. I had to take the train there. I had to pay for the APA registration to even go to the conference. So that kind of puts a bad taste in my mouth. I don't know if I have that in my list, but oh no, it's coming up. It's coming up. But yeah, look for free things. There's free food, free drinks, and you deserve that to be in this environment, especially I think in academia. At times there's moments where I feel like we don't get as much financial support as I feel like graduate students deserve, whether you're a TA, you're like helping teach classes. I don't know, I have thoughts about that. So look into happy hours, look into getting free food, free merch, free swag. Unfortunately, APA did not have free merch. I had to buy this, but I guess I'm supporting them, and also it's comfortable. But yeah, the free stuff is there for you. So while prioritizing talks and being like intellectually stimulated, like the good student you are, also go to happy hours, socialize, get some of the free food and the things that are there for you. Take advantage of that. This is the point that I was talking about in my previous point. So I would definitely say, at least with my conference, there was like an early bird special around the hotels that were near the convention center. I didn't know of this, so I ended up paying like full price at a hotel that was a bit far away. But any way to save money during the conference, I would say, is very smart to do. So I had some colleagues who actually shared like an Airbnb together. I was personally kind of going through a thing where I kind of wasn't sure if I was going with my partner at the time or not. So I was emotionally in a state where, after being overstimulated at the conference, I kind of wanted to come home to my own hotel room. So I ended up getting my own hotel room. But I think for the future, I would not do that anymore, just with the entire cost of the conference being so high, like lodging, travel, food, even just registration, like I said. Also, like, this is the funding point. If there's availability for funding, if there is not much clarity from your institution or university or your lab about funding, I would say ask. If your department only has a cap of like financial support they can give you, ask the school. There should be some sort of pocket somewhere that supports graduate students going to these conferences. I think there's nothing wrong with asking, and that's something I learned as well. I think moving forward, I'm gonna try my best to find ways and loopholes to save as much money as possible. Ultimately, I did love my hotel. It was very nice and I liked having my own space. There was a spider under the sheets one night, and that kind of ruined me for a few hours. I did not trust my bed, so I was like trying to sleep on top of the sheets after I killed the spider. But anyway, speaking of networking, I would say, why do people go to conferences, right? You're there to present a poster, to do a talk and whatnot. And everyone talks about networking, and it is a thing, especially let's say you're a graduate student, you're getting to know other graduate students around the country who are maybe doing the same work as you or similar work or completely different, that it's fascinating. Or you are an early career professional trying to talk to someone who's been in the field much longer. Networking inevitably is a part of these kinds of conferences, is what I heard and also what I experienced. But I think my advice would be, don't focus so much on the networking, but just focus on making connections. Be genuine, be yourself. I think that is more important than trying to bring a version of yourself that's just so like 2D, that's just academic, right? Because there's more to people than our work, our academic side. And just thinking back on the conversations that I had with people at the conference, I really remember the people that kind of showed their three-dimensionality in a way, that there's more to them, made me feel more like a person in such a, I don't know, because it's such a like, what's a good, like, I have a feeling for it, I'm trying to put a word next to it. Kind of like a sterile environment where it seems like networking and connections are kind of being forced in a way. All these people being jam-packed into these buildings, right? Like, we're in it together, da da da. which like is important obviously, but it's like too much like on the dot. You know, just talking about funding, you know, how are things back in your university? Do you feel supported? And kind of talking about the research, but also veering away from that, making connections rather than just networking. I think I mostly did that because I don't know how to not be authentic and genuine. Like, I wear my heart on my sleeve. Sometimes words just pop out of me. I wish I was a bit more mysterious. Obviously, I'm professional. Of course, I'm not like there talking about like my personal issues like I did with y'all in my last video. But you know what I mean. I think those connections meant a lot more than the slightly superficial ones that I engaged in, where it's like, you don't care about me, you care about the school that I came from. You don't care about me, you care about the person that I work with. Gotcha. You know what I mean? And I kind of mentioned this point before. You'll be asked what your research is, so think of a one-liner or more, you know, like an elevator pitch. Like, what are your research interests? Because you could be there for like a poster that you're supporting your lab with. But I would say, depending on what kind of academic program, obviously it's very different, the context of it all. But at least for my setting, it was helpful that, you know, when we were engaging in conversations that kind of veered away from just like the poster, it felt exciting to talk about like things I was passionate about, you know, and hearing about other people's interests and research passions. And, you know, if we have dedicated so many more years of our lives to higher academia, if you're in graduate school, there must be a reason for it. And I think that really helped with developing like the connections, you know. And last but not least, I guess I kind of stole this from the APA's conference slogan this year, but it is important. So their slogan was, "You belong here." And I think I appreciated that because being my very first academic conference, I was very nervous. I was like, what am I doing here? There's all these hotshot people, like the big names in this field were just a bunch of nerds, honestly. But like the cool nerds were there, okay? Like, I'm a newbie nerd and they're like the cool nerds who get recognized for being the cool nerds. And I was like, oh, I want to be a part of your club. But anyway, that got derailed real quickly. But yeah, if you're goofy, go be goofy. You belong there. There were so many different personalities and types of people at the conference. It just reminded me that all of us bring a different color and flavor and a unique perspective to these conferences. And basically, you know, everyone is nervous in their own way. They may seem way more put together than you are, but you don't know if they're worried about like their shoes hurting, or maybe they have stuff going on at home. Ultimately, everyone is going through their own thing, even in this kind of prim and proper, like prissy academic ivory tower setting. Be yourself. Don't worry about what other people will think. Obviously being professional, because it is like a conference setting. Go do what you have to do, whether if it's a poster or a talk, or maybe you're not even presenting, you're just attending to be an attendee. Try to have fun with it, try to be kind, compliment people's posters, their research pitch, their outfits, you know, kind of humanize it in a way, because you know, like think of how you would feel in that moment if someone humanized you in such a like overstimulating environment, you know? It makes it so much more worthwhile. And ultimately, we're all there to just learn from each other in one way or another, right? Whether through a talk or through a poster or through that kind of personal connection moment, we're all just there to learn. And yeah, just you belong there. You belong there. Remind yourself that you belong there as much as anyone else. So yeah, I believe that was 10 tips. I would hope so. I think I wrote 10 and I just started adding on the more I was preparing for this video, but I hope you found this video helpful. I very much enjoyed my first academic conference experience, and I very much look forward to many more in the future. That's it for my video on my top 10 tips on attending your first academic conference, or maybe it's not your first, but you want to hear about how my first one went. Again, title is not set in stone. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to thumbs up this video, and please make sure to subscribe. If you enjoy this kind of content, I would love it if you could join me in my small corner of the internet here. And yeah, have I said everything? I'm getting hungry, so my brain is getting a bit hazy, but I hope you are taking care of yourselves emotionally, physically, mentally, in all of those very important ways, and I will see you in the very next video. Bye!